here with Dr. Osvaldo Garcia, nutritionist and wellness guru to the stars, coming to us from New York City, Ground Zero Part 2, New York City, New York. Osvaldo has been in practice, at the cutting edge of practice for over 40 years, since before biohacking was a glint in the milkman's eye, and he's still at the top of his game and pushing the limits. So there's an absolute wealth of information to gain from you. How are you looking at the current situation? What are you sharing with your clients, and what are your main ideas at the moment?
There are different ways to look at this, and I say that in large measure because our points of view, my points of view, shift almost on a day-to-day basis. That being said, I remain extremely optimistic in terms of how things turn out. But they turn out against the background of a world that's changing really quite rapidly, that events that were unexpected. Nobody, in large measure at the federal level, let's say here in this country, many governments around the world saw this coming, although there have been predictions about this occurring now for many years. There was a wonderful talk given by Bill Gates on TED back in 2015, where he called it. And a number of terrific thinkers at that level knew that this was an inevitable event that would take place. What occurs to me on a daily basis is even my own failure to take into consideration that this could occur. And this is in light of the same kind of information, being exposed to a lot of data that indicated that sooner or later this would occur. We live, in many ways, cut off from a broader reality that we are animals, that we do live on a planet, that we're finite animals. There comes a day where we won't be here, that the planet won't be here. And we can accelerate the demise of either one, both through our actions and our ignorance. So I've been quite humbled on a daily basis now as we go through these events. I do think, in addition, that this kind of humility brings us to a point of let's say, understanding, behavior, self-conduct, reflection. And so my days begin right now with thinking through very carefully. I get up quite early, part of my rituals and practices, so that I can be better prepared for the day ahead, whatever it may bring. That means that I don't get up and make a cup of coffee and walk around and listen to the news and get my anxiety levels up. But I do begin by being quite thoughtful, quite mindful. So I've got my morning rituals that determine in large measure how my thinking will be for the day, whatever the day may bring. We do have a great deal of information that's coming at us, as you know, wherever you may be. And a lot of this information may not necessarily be something that we can deal with all that well. The human brain is designed in large measure to deal with maybe 5, 6, 7 at most pieces of information at any given moment. If you put on world news and start listening, you're going to be bombarded with a multitude of information, details, and data that overwhelm our ability to actually make sense of it all. Mm-hmm. We're animals that scare easily, through evolution, the way that we are. We do scare easily, and we scare easily when we don't know what's about to happen. The need to anticipate what may be occurring at any given moment into the future is kind of baked into our nervous system. Mm-hmm. And when we don't know what may happen, when our ability to predict what's going to occur breaks down, we become more anxious, more nervous. So I do see a great deal of suffering, besides the fact that people are suffering from the illness itself. The COVID-19 virus, which is what comes from being affected with COVID. You see the suffering that's occurring as people can't understand these events. The world has been turned inside out. And so the suffering itself of the illness, the suffering that comes from the inability to think well about it, and the suffering about how to best prepare yourself, your thinking, your body, your biology, how it is that you can best prepare yourself. I think these are a number of things that are on my mind every single day when I wake up.
Very nice, very nice. Okay, so, but there was one thing that you said there that I'd like you to expand on a little bit, that you were taken by surprise, even as a medical professional. What, can you expand on that, and what you would have done differently had you, taken action based on the warnings from Bill Gates, etc.?
I think, like many people, we live in a kind of denial. The events that are occurring to the planet through climate change, for instance, we could go there. Mm-hmm. So although we may all know that we're doing extreme damage to the planet, we're accelerating the destruction of much of what's important in terms of the vegetation, forests, the vast amount of pollution in cities, the rising of the oceans, the destruction of the North Pole. I could go on and cite different events that are occurring. Despite it all, there's only so much that I can do. So yes, I can tithe a certain amount of my income every month. I can communicate with my friends, family, my community, my clients. What could any one of us possibly do? But we're only so big. There are 7 billion of us on the planet. And so you do your best in terms of communicating this information and live a life, you would hope, that would minimize your footprint of damage, mm-hmm. adding to the destruction of the world. Now, that's occurring is occurring against the background of knowledge. I already know and have known for quite a while that this is going on. And I'm not living in an illusion about it. When it comes to what's occurring now, the destruction of people's lives, this invisible wave of infection from this virus, I think many of us could never have thought of it like, yeah, this is really going to happen. So when you contrast it against climate change, where you're looking at the data and going back many years to Al Gore's original film on Earth warming, to now, we've had a long enough ramp to kind of think it through and recognize something's happening here, and this is not good. It looks like it's going to end really badly. And so you begin to participate in the ways that we do. Nobody that I know could have predicted this at all. So, or rather, have accepted it. Let me be a little bit clear in that regard.
Mm-hmm. So what I'm hearing from that is that maybe, looking back, one kind of takeaway that everyone can gain from this is, pay attention to the pretty inevitable things which are going to happen statistically at some point, market corrections, pandemics, like earthquakes in California, there's another one due. Have a little bit of preparation for those kinds of events, and don't be taken by surprise when they happen.
Well, let's just say that we're not realistic enough. We do live in many of us in illusions, and an illusion about practical reality. Mm-hmm. So yes, there are people that live along earthquake fault lines, even though they know that this is going to crack at some point. They still choose to live there.
Hmm.
And we could cite many instances in that regard, Alex.
The hurricane
So,
belt.
correct. Living in areas where we know flooding will occur, living in the floodplain of a river, for instance, and yet people choose to do that in the face of being aware that something bad could occur. So there is that kind of denial that goes on, and we're forgetful. We're animals that are really quite forgetful in that regard. So when it comes to bad news, worst possible outcome, yes, in some regards, we're well aware that some things could go wrong, but there are much bigger, broader things like the events that we're living through now that we never would have believed could occur. No, that's just not going to happen, not in my lifetime,
Hmm.
even though plagues, invasions, wars
Hmm.
are part of what it means to be a historical creature, being part of history. And here we are, a historical event of a global magnitude is taking place. And we don't understand that on a smaller scale, this has been going on forever.
Yeah. So now what we've been doing is talking about, I guess, the macro view, the high altitude planetary view. If we can zoom in, you are, a trusted source of advice and, kind of wisdom for many high profile people that, like would be that many of the audience would be on a first name basis with. So what are some of the ideas that you're sharing with those people that our audience can also benefit from?
Uh, I'd say, how are you conducting yourself under the circumstances? The initial way that many people began to deal with it was almost as though you were in some sort of Edgar Allan Poe story, the Dance of the Red Mask, for instance, which was a horror story he wrote, and it had to do with the oncoming plague during this era, back in the Middle Ages, where the wealthy chose to lock themselves up in a castle and throw a mask, a ball, and lock themselves in the hope that this would keep death out, while the rest of the world around them was coming apart. The fact is, of course, those of us that love that kind of storytelling, when the plague entered, the Black Death entered, and of course, it ended as badly as you would suspect it would. I think many of us continued at the beginning to deny that this was occurring. And once we realized the horror of it all, many people kind of went off the edge, drinking too much, sleeping too much, worrying excessively, and forgetting all the things that they do need to do in order to maintain themselves, I think, prepared for whatever may be ahead. So what I do advise many of the people that I work with is to become, if anything, more ritualized, fall into your practices better, the things that we know we need to do ourselves, maintain our sanity, so that we don't drift off into worst possible scenario going forward. When you do get up every morning, I would suspect that you, like myself, and like I would advise many of my clients, to actually have a mindful period every morning. I'm not going to drink 2-3 cups of coffee and increase my anxiety when I wake up. I do want to have my morning and that of my friends and my community be about spending time to be mindful, whatever that may represent for any person, so that you begin to set your day up. And I'm very please go ahead, Alex.
What is your mindfulness practice, if I may?
There are different parts to it. Part one is believe it or not, I'm a big fan of Wim Hof. Many people listening here probably know who he is. He's called the Iceman, and he does recommend that you do an ice bath, an ice shower. So this morning when I got up, I got up and did my workout routine, which I would recommend that everybody does. Kind of sets your brain with the of course, the entrainment that's going to set your mind going. That begins to set me up for my Wim Hof bath or shower. So I did this morning an ice cold bath. I'm not going to recommend this to anybody, to everybody, but I'm taking about 20, 30 pounds of ice from the store into the tub, and then I go right in behind it. That kind of puts a shock to the system, but it does wake you up and it gets your mind going. After that, meditating for a good 20 minutes. I love to listen to Sam Harris, brilliant neuroscientist out of California, and has a phenomenal app called Waking Up, secular meditation. Spend time to reflect on what I have to. So I'm going through a sequence of events as I'm beginning to prepare my morning beverage, play with my dog, look at what I have to, my notes, and journal for a little while as I get prepared for what my schedule is going to bring me. And you're the first thing on my schedule this morning.
Thank you. It's a great honor. So the ice bath, I mean, that's pretty high, hassle. How often do you do the actual ice bath? You order the ice in?
Well, today's Monday. I can actually walk downstairs to my drugstore and pick it up. It's not that difficult.
Okay.
Most mornings would be a nice shower. Okay. Now, I'm saying this so that people understand that it's not something faddish, but it does have an impact on the immune system. Mm-hmm. Extremes of either heat or cold does improve the immune response overall. This is historical, again, in terms of our evolution. We do know that there are different proteins that our body has. Among them, there are cold stress proteins, heat stress proteins, and they begin to fold in on themselves in certain ways that cause damage to our bodies. What we want to do is begin the process of normalizing our body so that it responds better on a day-to-day basis. And among many things that you can do so that it performs better, mm-hmm. So that it doesn't age in an accelerated manner, would be, of course, adequate sleep, working out, being mindful, doing extremes of heat or cold, being very, very thoughtful in terms of what it is that we do eat. So I could go category by category by category. And I think the ice bath or ice shower is something I've cultivated over a number of years, simply from working with Wim Hof and finding that it was very suitable. I find that it makes an immense difference in terms of how I feel.
Nice. And I just want to emphasize for the audience that these tips are not only what Dr. Oz practiced, but what he recommends to the elite grade clients who are paying the big bucks. So just to unpack it again.
That's correct.
You wake up, you do not hit the morning coffee. You procrastinate on the morning coffee as late as possible. You start with the physical exercise, then correct. You have the ice bath or shower.
Either that or shower, correct.
Yeah, then you have the mindfulness practice, 20 minutes.
That's correct.
Sam Harris. Then you have a journaling phase.
Correct.
And then you have the morning beverage and start to, consume.
Correct. I'm going to go through my thoughtfulness. I won't. The background of my morning is music. It's not going to be news. So I'll put on some classical jazz. This morning it happened to be John Coltrane, and it begins to kind of set the mood. We do know that there are aspects of science that study the effects of music on the human brain, and that's something that many people could speak to much better than myself. But I'm well aware of how well I feel once I've got that going, and how my mind begins to adapt to the morning. It's a much more comfortable way to enter the day. Beautiful. So I may do that. I may put on a podcast in the background. I love Tim Ferriss, Dr. Peter Attia, maybe Joe Rogan if I want to laugh a little bit. Mm-hmm. So anything that's going to put my mind in a much better place as I'm moving through my routines and arriving at the first thing on my schedule. I don't look at my phone first thing in the morning. I may not look at it for the first couple of hours. I'm certainly not going to look at social media, emails, Instagram, Facebook. Those things I'll leave for, I'd say, a little bit later once I've been up for several hours.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what you've done is shared pretty much one of the most powerful things that anyone, in my opinion, that anyone can implement into their lives to create a life of more awesomeness.
Correct.
Very, very relevant for what we're going through now, because we're kind of stuck inside. And have there been any modifications based on the current situation, or are you pretty stable with the routine?
Actually, I almost fell off in the shock of it all the first week or so. Very difficult to stay within the routines. There is that kind of deep doubting that entered the minds of many of us in questioning whether anything that I was doing made a difference or not. Mm-hmm. And as I began to understand that, yes, I've got to make my mornings meaningful. I have to make my afternoon meaningful, my evenings meaningful, my days meaningful, even if I fall back into my routines all over again. So anybody that's interested right now in making a contribution and being able to participate in helping others, you got to start by, first of all, taking care of yourself. Right, but that means dealing with social policy. What we now know you've got to do, and I'm not going to repeat what's been on the news wires, and we all need to do on a daily basis. And then what it is that you do as personal policy, so that you take care of the body politic and keep it as prepared as possible for whatever it is that we need to deal with. Now, these are things that are going to impact your immune system for the better. So there are certain supplements, and which you can also call nutraceuticals, that are available to many people that will make a difference in terms of your overall immune system. I can very quickly tell you that even the use of what are called probiotics, these are bacteria that come in fermented foods, in yogurts, in the Far East, in Japan, you can get it in foods that are fermented, everything from miso to pickled vegetables. Regionally, it's all the different kinds of yogurts that people eat, so that you're bringing into your body the kind of bacteria that does modulate your immune response on a daily basis. I'm not saying that anything that I would recommend could possibly in any way indemnify you from COVID-19. Now, that being said, I want to be as strong as possible given circumstances. I'd rather take my chances with all the things that I'm talking about, so that were I to be infected, or anybody that I know were to be infected, that they have a strong biological response and a strong enough body to see if they could weather the possible detrimental effect of an infection.
Okay, so in terms of the supplement stack, the nutraceutical stack, you're saying probiotics mainly from fermented foods, not necessarily supplements on those. What would be the other handful of high priority things?
Or I'd say that.
Yeah.
Great. I think, Alex, that if you can, wherever you are watching this, and you can get good high quality probiotics. There are different companies that are out there that I think are terrific. Garden of Life, I think are terrific, and I would use those on a daily basis. I think if you have access to Amazon, you can also order a nasal probiotic called Livia One. Believe it or not, by spraying your sinuses with probiotics, you infect your sinus cavities with a certain kind of bacteria that will offer you additional protection from infections. Nice. There are different probiotics, probiotic toothpaste, for instance, that can be purchased on Amazon in addition. This is critical because wherever you have an orifice, you want to make sure that it's protected infected with probiotics that offer you additional defense mechanisms that typically people are just not aware of. So at root, you have to actually infect yourself, like I said, with different probiotics. From there, the stack goes on to include some things that are being identified very quickly that can make a difference in terms of your immune protection. I'd say vitamin D, very simple enough, probably 5,000 IU a day for most people. From there, as you go across the board, I think that different things that help you sleep better, that will have an effect also on your immune system. There's a product I like a great deal called phosphatidylserine, or PS, which is easily available. This is a kind of quasi amino acid that will improve how well your brain performs. I think beyond that, it begins to contribute to the strength of your body overall. I think L-serine, which is another amino acid, easy enough to get on Amazon, will have a profound effect on quality of sleep. And we need to talk about that a little bit in terms of a strong immune system, different aspects of how well your brain works. No question about it, we're finding out that vitamin A seems to be having a very deep effect on your immune response in addition. So these are a few things, some a little bit more technical, some a little bit more graspable, that I think begin to put together a way of taking much better.
Very nice, very nice. So we will be sure to put that stack in the speaker notes section. We'll get your hand-picked selection. Now we're on the tail end. I think that we've covered a lot.
Oh, by the way, I would add to that, Alex. Also, ascorbic acid, which is vitamin C. Obviously, we're recognizing now.
Megadose.
Yeah, megadoses, to the extent that you can handle it. Buffered vitamin C, of course, probably between 500 to 2,000 milligrams a day. In a more, I'd say, sophisticated environment, if you could even get it intravenously, it would make a terrific effect in your body. But again, not everybody has access to injectable vitamin C. So the oral version, of course.
And don't try that at home, folks. Now,
no, not at all.
Okay, so we're on the tail end. So what we've covered is the morning ritual, making sure that you have that kind of religiously, no pun intended, as part of your daily routine. It will have the most powerful effects this crisis and beyond on your whole existence. You've given us a stack of supplements for people to, kind of like benefit from and boost their immunity. If there was the last kind of parting word or like core idea that you would want to share with everyone at this stage, what would it be?
Be informed. I think your curiosity will get you through this period better. And when I say be informed, I don't mean having world news on all day. I mean, be informed. Expose yourself to the kind of information that will bring you peace of mind. I think reading for all of us right now is critical. I find that this is giving me a means by which I can settle my mind. The commodity of having a calmer mind equals out and far overrides commodifying money, where at this point in time, what we need more than anything is a clear way of thinking, a clear path. And to that extent, being able to do all the things that quiet the voice in your head. To that, I would add sleep, get adequate amounts of sleep on a regular basis. When you're down, go lay down, go get some rest, and make sure that you're getting about 8 hours of sleep on a regular basis. These are very basic things that wind up having a profound effect on how your day and your mornings and how all of this may turn out to be.
Beautiful. Okay, Dr. Oswald, I also wanted to conclude by personally thanking you and offering my gratitude. I asked you for mentorship during the putting on of this event. It's been like a real pretty intense time, and I wanted to thank you for coming through on that and really speaking to me on a semi-daily basis and all your guidance and wisdom and mentorship. So thank you for that. Thank you for sharing with us. We will be putting links to all of your materials, social media, blogs, etc. And thank you very much for your contribution.
Alex, have a great day.
Thank you.